for February.
Sorry.
That's all right. First meeting for February 2022. Even today, I think people would have seen the news with more changes coming through for our industry.
What are they?
So I thought I'd just go over what these meetings are about. So that we're trying to hold them. I hold them around about the middle of the month. Now we've included all the association executives. So all your executives would have got an email saying this is available for them. Up to them if they join. And if you've also got paid staff. So if you've got any paid staff or paid admin people, I know, for example, Waikato, they have someone else doing their PowerPoint presentation for the night. Auckland's the same. If you want to steal any of these slides, just do. But the main reason I set it up was for the smaller property investors associations that don't have time to prepare for a meeting, so they can use any one of these PowerPoints and just hide all the other ones. I will be sending out a Moodle survey, so just to find out the dates and times to have these meetings. Some people like them during the day and some people like them in the evenings, but I'll send it around and people can say what day of the week they prefer it and what time they prefer it. We could make it later, we could make it earlier. I'm open to suggestions. First slide I've got on here, if you just want to show your association, just who the Federation is and what we do. The disclaimer, so always use the disclaimer whenever you're doing your PowerPoint presentations to association members. Bunnings, so this is just information that I've received in the last few months. So Bunnings, so do not use the self-serve checkouts because they do not count your card for giving you the discounts. You must go to actually be served by a checkout person. So something just to make sure you tell your members, because if they go to the normal self-serve counters for the places that have them, you won't be getting any discount. So the RMA changes, these came through in November last year, and it was a bipartisan agreement between Labour and National, and it's a lot of people are calling it Townhouse Nation. It just means now that you can build three houses up to 3 stories can be built on most sites without the need for resource consent. It's cutting through a lot of the red tape with councils, and they think it'll facilitate between 25,000 and 105,000 new houses, which will be built between the next 5 to 8 years. It's done in Tier 1, so at the moment Tier 1 is the main centres that they are letting it happen, and then it can be applied to Tier 2 areas such as Nelson and Tasman. And yeah, it'll be a good thing, I think, for houses. It'll be a good thing of getting houses built, make it easier for people to get houses done. But whether councils actually allow it will be another thing. Changes to the healthy home. So these came through in December 2021. So I haven't had a meeting since then, so I thought that I'd put it onto this. So the Residential Tenancies Act, the Healthy Homes regulations, they changed. So anything that's post 2008 buildings, so that's new buildings, from 2008, effective houses which were built to the 2008 code, the requirements for insulation and glazing and apartments have changed. So now you can use smaller heating devices on anything built after 2008, and they've updated the Heating Homes Assessment tool on the Tenancy Services website. So if you've copied, not that I think anyone would have, but if you've copied down that formula and somehow or other put it on your computer, you may need to update it for the 2000 if you've got a post 2008 property that you're putting the figures into. Other heating sources, so now they're looking at eco-efficient technology, which is fantastic. So I know for Hawke's Bay we have a lot of infrared heating, so that's now being covered, which is great. You still have to be able to heat your property to 18 degrees on the coldest day, and they've also included geothermal heated homes. So I know in Taupo, I'm not too sure, Rotorua I know there might be 2, I think there might be, but I know in Taupo there's definitely some houses that are geothermally heated. So they're now covered, which is great. Some of the other things, so this one will affect most people, is where you've got a qualifying heater was installed prior to the 1st of July 2019, the top up you were allowed has changed from 1.5 kilowatts to 2.4 kilowatts. So that means that instead of some people having to put in a whole new heat pump system, they can actually get away with just putting in the top up and making sure that they can still get to the 18 degrees, and they must use the heating tool formula on the website. The trigger point for the top up or replacement existing heaters installed before 1st of July have also been revised to existing heaters that are at 80% of the required heating capacity. That's changed. It's reduced from the current 90%. That's good. I know a lot of people, they have gone ahead and done their healthy homes requirements. So it was good of them to announce it, but I wish they'd done it right at the start. Once the heaters, though, need to be replaced, then you need to make sure that your one heater is fully compliant with the healthy homes. My computer won't let me change screen. There we go. Education program. So education program has now, the fees for this have increased. So they've gone from $300 to $350, which increased in January this year. So if as a selling point, you can always say that the actual education program now is $350, whereas for members, it's still free. The CCCFA, so the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act, there's been a bit of talk about this since it was implemented in December last year. It covers all transactions, so credit cards, taking out a loan, personal or mortgages, house mortgages, any sort of borrowing money or buying products and services such as hire purchase. It really was designed to stop loan sharks. What they're finding is that some contracts for credit companies were charging, let's say 18-20%, but the interest charges were astronomical. So what they've done now, they've changed it. So the lender must identify all charges that will be applied to any product or goods that you purchase, and they must do that up front. It's a good idea, but what they have found now, and we've heard more about it, is that it means that credit is actually slowing down. It's harder for people to get mortgages because they need to go into the finer details now of your finances. Speaker list. So Inland Revenue have approached us and they are willing to go around all the associations and speak about interest mortgage tax deductibility and the Bright Line. So if you want to get them to come and speak at your association meeting, Jan has emailed the details out to you, but if you can't find that email, then just ask Jan and she'll resend it to you. But it's Sophie Smith that you get in contact with, the IRD, and they'll organise someone to come and speak at your meeting. NZPIF is also looking at updating the speaker list, which we'll send to you in the next couple of weeks. So we were just talking before about Steve Goody's making the rounds at the moment, and Opus Partners are also making the rounds as speakers if you want them to come and talk at your association. The next NZPIF communications meeting is on the 28th of May, which will be at the Brentwood Hotel in Wellington. The agenda, we haven't finalised the agenda yet, but if there's anything you'd like to include or any topics you think that we could do as a communications type thing, please let Jan know. And also start thinking about who you can send along to that meeting. You may find it cheaper to buy flights now if you need to buy flights. They're really good in New Zealand at the moment with their cancellation process. So if you need to cancel it and get a credit, it's easy to do, and it's probably worth buying your flights now rather than leaving it till the last minute. Zoom meetings. So I've gone on this week and purchased some Zoom equipment that we need for Hawke's Bay property investors. And when you buy anything from Noel Lemon, remember you get the 50% discount. So it was a $70 tripod, and I think it cost me $23 or something like that. So it's a huge discount I got from Noel Lemming. So just remember to use your, on the back of your membership card, there's a number for Noel Lemming, so you get a good discount there. When you're doing these meetings, this one's fine, but if you are recording your meetings, your association meetings, just be careful who receives it, because you don't know whose hands it will end up in, and you may want to edit it before you distribute it. But we really advise probably not sending those meetings out because you never know where they'll turn up. Privacy Commission, so they released new guidelines on the 10th of November. You can only gather information as you need it. So you can't get a tenant to fill out an application form where you don't even know that they may be a prospective tenant. So it's slowed down the process a lot. They've made it five systems that you have to do. And we think it'll leave more houses empty for a longer period of time while you're going through this process. I've put down there the Privacy Commission guidelines. So if you want to go through those with your associations, you can. I won't go through it on this presentation though. Regulation of property managers. This came out today, released today. I had a 2-minute, well, I had a half an hour interview, I suppose, and I had 2 seconds on TV news tonight. So the details are released today. It doesn't include owner managers, so us, which is fantastic. There's a discussion paper which has been out, which has been put out by Housing and Urban Development, and they've asked for submissions which close on the 22nd of April. I did notice on TV1 when they talked about it, no property managers were prepared to talk, and not even REINZ, which I thought was unusual. So whether they, I don't know. I know that a lot of property managers, RPM, Regional Property Managers Association, I know they were pushing for it, and Promans, I think they were pushing for it. So I don't quite understand why no one was prepared to speak, although the fines are quite significant that a property manager can get. But it is a protection. It's a protection for a landlord and also a tenant. So if you do have your properties managed, on the outskirts of it, it's 52 pages or 54 pages, something document, the discussion document, but on the outskirts of it, I think it looks like a good thing for owners. So from now on, I think is from now on is PowerPoints that I have shown before. So for those that wanted to go and get dinner, Andrew, run away. And for those that want to stay, I'm going to go quite quickly through the next part, but just so you know, the PowerPoints are there. And as I've said, if you want to use any of these for your presentations, feel free, correct any spelling mistakes if I've got them, hopefully not too many though. Correct any spelling mistakes and just show what you need to. So this one is insurance update regarding tenants' criminal convictions. So as a landlord, even with the new privacy rules, not rules, regulations, guidelines they call it, don't they? Privacy guidelines, you can still ask a tenant if they've got a criminal record. So pre-agreement and then lease renewal, you can actually ask them in between as well, because it does affect your insurance. And just be careful that insurance cover actually will cover people that have some sort of criminal convictions. Just something to just be wary of and maybe make it aware to your members. Remember to include these things on your tenancy agreement. So insulation statement, start of the year, a lot of people are often changing flats at this time of year, moving house. So insulation statements, make sure you have the tenancy agreement, healthy home statement, disclose whether or not the property is insured, the amount that it's insured for, and state the current level of compliance with the healthy homes. You can actually get all of these on our NZPO tenancy agreement. So if you use our tenancy agreement, which is on our website, it's got all of these things included. I think the one you get now, if you use the tenancy services one, is something like 17 pages or 27 or something, which is huge. So HUD have released a fact sheet on antisocial behaviour. You may need to use that. It might be party season at being summer. Not that you guess it's summer. Antisocial behaviour, they've done the definition of what antisocial behaviour is on their website. Just examples if you wanted to go over that with members. What to do if you have an antisocial tenant. The thing with these websites, these PowerPoints, sorry, is that often you don't have a problem until you have a problem, and you mightn't have a problem until there's maybe one per year. So it's quite good to refresh it. You never know who of your members might be having that particular problem at the time. So at the same day, you give them the for your tenants, so you give them the warning of what they've been doing wrong. At the same time, you give them a 14-day notice to remedy their actions. And then after your 3 antisocial behaviour notices on 3 separate occasions, then you can go carry on through to tenancy tribunal. So you can still end a tenancy if you're a landlord where the tenant has assaulted or threatened to assault the landlord, or caused or permitted another person to cause or have treated or have threatened to cause substantial damage to the premises. Other points, so the RTA, breach of their obligations. So if someone has breached their obligations to interfere with reasonable peace, comfort, or privacy of the neighbours or breach of their obligations to not use the property for unlawful purposes. So if you know that someone, for example, is doing meth in your property, then you still have ways and methods of removing them from your property. More information on these on the Tenancy Services website. They're updating their website all the time at the moment, which is great. RTA, these are just refresher slides if you want to go over this side of things in one of your meetings. So periodic tenancies talks about where they are, how they are, the different timelines, what notice periods you need to give tenants, more timelines, fixed term tenancies, how they convert to a periodic unless you've got 3 reasons why they could change and not convert, installing a minor change, just what that is, fibre broadband, rent increases and setting. So just remind people that you can only increase the rent once every 12 months. Privacy and access to justice. This is, I've just written an article on this about name suppression and how the Tenancy Tribunal at the moment, if you look at a lot of the orders coming through, it's got the name as none and the address as none. So seems to be used a lot at the moment. I don't really think it should be. I'm hoping that when certain people read my article, they will think, oh, that's not right, and change things. I see even emergency housing providers are they've got their name on the Tenancy Tribunal order. However, they are asking for privacy, name suppression of the tenants, even though they are taking the tenants, and the tenants are the ones that are liable to end up paying, which I just think is so wrong. Anyway, I'm hoping that someone may look at it. I know there's people in high places that actually look at, read the articles in the magazine. Assignments, so being the start of the year, a lot of tenants I know will probably be changing properties and things like that. So you must do everything to help them change if they need to. Assignment of fixed term tenancy, those are just some of the things that you need to go through, but just one thing to be important is on raising the rents. So if you have a new flatmate or someone move in and you've just increased the rent for the last tenants, you can't increase the rent until another 12 months, well 10 months from the last time you, or 12 months from the last time you did it. Providing information, so if you are swapping over a tenant, you must show them all costs. I think there was something in the paper recently about someone who charged a tenant like $700 for finding another tenant, and that was just for a trade me ad or something else. So don't over exaggerate those costs. Make sure they are proper costs, and you've got invoices to prove what the costs are to find another tenant, so credit checks and things like that. Enforcement of the RTA. So we know this, that the costs of everything, if you're found liable, have increased from February 2021. Member enforcement, I haven't heard of any enforcement undertakings at the moment. I don't know whether they may have slowed down because of COVID and not willing to go into rental homes, or whether they're taking more of a stand back at things. Maybe we can talk about that once I finish talking and see if anyone's noticed anything, like what are the compliance and investigation team doing at the moment. So the RTA doesn't apply for transitional and emergency housing, and they are developing a code of practice. I asked last week how they're getting on with the code of practice, and it hasn't been written. So that's 1 year on now, and they haven't even written the code of practice for emergency housing providers. I don't think it would be that hard, but anyway. Just some documents there that you require for the RTA. And some more there which you can show your members. Landlord compliance checklist. It's a really good idea to ask your members to print off the checklist and to go through it just to make sure they are compliant on their properties. So RTA, so we know that the first dates have come through, but the family violence and physical assault, that's been pushed out to mid-2022. It may even be later, I think, because they've just produced the regulatory requirements for property managers. So that may even be later than mid-2022. Family violence, so just what it previously was. So withdrawal by tenants experiencing family violence. and nothing specific to support the tenants experiencing family violence. And there I've just written the new, or what they are thinking about the new requirements will be. Nothing's formulated yet. We don't know exactly what will happen there. Physical assault. So physical assault, you can still remove tenants from a property. There is provision for that in the RTA as it stands at the moment. And healthy homes. So just remind people that 1st of July 2024 is when all properties must comply with the healthy homes standards. Time goes fast, as we know. It was 2020 that they first introduced it, so it does go fast. Healthy homes extension. So for those people, mostly in Auckland, that have been in lockdown and haven't been able to get their healthy homes up to standard, as long as you've shown a conscious effort that you have been getting it up to standard, members said that they will not give fines. However, if you've done nothing, they will give fines. So the next few slides are just going through the 23rd of March 21 changes. I won't go through these. I think everyone knows what they are. It's just on the bright line test and interest deductibility on properties and the definition of a new build. Now this here is something I mentioned at the same time. So limiting rent increases to once per year per property. We've heard nothing of this. I thought when they started talking about rent freezes that this may be what they're going to mean, but I don't know. I still keep telling investors though, even if you've got existing tenants that have been in a property for a long time, make sure it's at market rent. If they do decide to bring this in, they will put a freeze on it. And what that will mean is that even if you have another tenant that moves in, they will have to pay the same rent that the last tenants paid. So even though you might be helping your existing tenants that have been there for a long time, it means your new tenants who you don't know will get a very a cheap rental, which doesn't help anyone. Just some other things that were on the table. So ending of interest-only loans, that's really up to the banks to do. I don't think they'll do that. Reserve Bank is looking at bringing up debt to income, so we know that's back on the table now. Extending the bright line to 20 years, they won't do that. There's nothing really happening. Reintroduction of stamp duty, I don't think they'll do that with the way the housing market is at the moment, and compulsory selling of vacant land. They haven't said that they'll do anything on that. I think at the moment they're worried about supply, building supply, so they won't really be trying to push people to do subdivision of vacant land. Those are the unintended consequences of the interest deductibility. Opportunities. What's next, we don't know. So rental indexing. When they talked about rental freezes the other day, I thought they might be doing something on rental indexing. So that would mean that they would put it to CPI, and CPI is 5.9%. So Renters United were all keen for it to be put against the CPI. So rent increases were to the CPI, but now it's at 5.9%. They've gone very quiet on it. So rental caps, they've said that won't happen either. So that's looking at the maximum amount you can charge for the size of the property or the price of the property. Just other things that are excluded in the tax deductibility. Just saying that for houses that are emergency transitional social housing exempt from, well, you still can claim the interest deductibility. I think there might be something else coming out about this, only because I don't know how they're going to say that properties are available for social housing needs. It's a good idea if you can get into them. It's very hard to get into them, and I don't know if it's really worth it. From, for example, the motel units here, and there was a lot of them that were doing it, they said the cost of redoing their properties all the time and keep them up to standards is very expensive. Some places and some emergency housing suppliers, they do a really good job, but there's some that don't as well. So if you are putting your property into emergency housing through a supplier, make sure that you've done good research on them first. So short-term accommodation, they made sure that was captured in the interest deductibility. Just other things about who agreed with it, who didn't agree with it. What people said, as I said to you, make sure your rents are kept at the current rent. Use the NZPO for rent checker or Trade Me. Don't use the tenancy services data. The tenancy services data does 6 months, and now they're not doing the current month as well, so it's actually 7 months old, and they're amortizing that rental price over the 7 months. So it's way behind what the rents actually are in a particular area. So don't use those. Use Trade Me as the way of finding out what your rents are. So these are some things I've learned over the last few months. So virtual inspections. So for those people that are in lockdown and did virtual inspections, the Insurance Council do not count those as being a physical inspection. So I would get to and get your inspections done, especially if you're on a 3-month or 4-monthly inspection regime, and try and get those done as quickly as possible in case you have something like me when a tree went through the garage the other day in Auckland, which was very good. Compliance and investigation will not penalise you if you've made the effort to get your properties up to date. And that website called Aratahu, Tenant Advocacy, it's quite good to have a look at that. It's also got tenancy tribunal orders that have come up on certain cases, so it gives you some idea of seeing what the rulings are that are coming through. This COVID management measures that came through, these were set in about, I think it was November or December last year. I don't think this will come to fruition because we've got the Omicron COVID variant. However, I did a summary before Omicron got here, and it means that they can turn on and off the COVID-19, depending on COVID-19 outbreaks in a certain area. It means that you can't do tenancy tribunals. Tenants can get to 60 days for rent arrears. They can still you can still terminate for antisocial behaviour, but it's very difficult. And tenants may choose to stay in the property despite being given notice. So I don't think this is really relevant now. However, the legislation is there and they can turn it on or off anytime with Omicron or any sort of COVID in the community. Just remember, you can't ask your tenants if they're vaccinated. It is a breach of their privacy. So submissions we're working on at the moment, so Reserve Bank, the debt to income, submissions are closing on the 28th of February, and the regulation of property managers, which released today, is closing on April the 22nd. That's quite a long lead time for the April one, which is good. So other things on my radar, there's not too many of these that have changed from last year, apart from the ones that now have come to being relevant, but just some of the things. There's nothing that I think is too significant. I would say though that I'm a bit worried that members don't realise how much the tax deductibility will affect them, and it might be even worthwhile doing a mathematics type evening if you can find an accountant that'll work out the maths of how much it'll actually cost some people with the being unable to do the tax deductibility. It might be fine on the 31st of March tax return, but it might be the following years that it really starts to affect people. Is there any questions? Apart from I see you've said about Bunnings not having the same discount. We have noticed that Bunnings don't have the same discount. We have signed another agreement with them.
I did put on the notes that we are negotiating with them currently about that. So I'm hoping for good news shortly.
Yeah. Is there any other questions on anything I've covered tonight?
What about the rent freezes? Have you heard any more on that? Because I remember last year.
No. So rent freezes won't happen. Even Jacinda came out and said that rent freezes won't happen. Poto Williams, even though she mentioned it, I thought that she would actually do rental indexing, but nothing has been mentioned. And I thought when she called me, I found out a couple of weeks ago she was going to call me this Monday, and I thought that might be about some sort of rental legislation, but it wasn't. It was about the property managers. So I think that's gone quiet at the moment. Yeah, I'm hoping anyway. They can't keep interfering in it. They've got to let the market go.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sharon, the townhouse legislation, as they're calling it, so
Yes.
it's past its third reading, but
Yes.
will it come into effect? Is it the 1st of August next or this year?
I'm not too sure, actually. I haven't been following the dates that's but I know it's gone through the readings. What was that, Sean?
Well, once it's in force, councils have to change their district plan to accommodate it. So it's not binding automatically. Once it is, it's essentially gives them councils a delegated power to but I understand the district plans of councils have to change to update to that flexibility, because the district plans, I think, still guide the resource management requirements in each local authority.
So it may not even come in, Sean.
Well, our council probably will adopt it before it's even legal, but
That's good, isn't it? Good for some people and bad for others, I suppose.
That's how the Hut Council works, but yes, but I guess it would depend on a local basis on what's the and how close it is to the next election, which is coming up.
Yeah. With bill costs going up as much as the total insurance online calculators, now 15 to 20%. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Tim. Yeah, something to remind members. That's true. So check the valuation of your property. Good idea. I'll do a slide on that for next time for those that aren't here. Remember too, these get put online too. So anytime if you like, you can grab these off this PowerPoint offline. You have to excuse me, I've got the last of the sun coming through the window before it disappears on a beautiful hot 24 degrees summer day here in Hawke's Bay.
Whereabouts do we get the slides, Sharon?
They're on the website under members only. What's it called, Jan?
Monthly updates.
Monthly updates.
Of course, it won't be there yet because I won't be tomorrow when I put it up.
Yeah.
But there are other, you'll find other meetings, other sessions there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So each month I update it. Next month I'll close a lot of the ones that you've seen tonight, unless we get a lot of new people on. But I'll close off a lot of the ones that we have, and I'll just have the latest things that are there. But they are all still there, and I do go through them all the time, make sure they're all relevant.
Yep.
Was it 79 slides or something? So it is a big PowerPoint, but don't show them all at your meeting. But you may choose to do one, for example, on tax deductibility. You may choose to do one on healthy homes, and I've done them in sections, so you can do that. Any other questions?